call this meeting to order. We'll start off by roll call. Mrs. Estrada?
Good morning, everyone. Roll call. Cameron County. Hidalgo County RMA.
Present.
Hidalgo County. City of Bronzeville.
Here.
City of McAllen.
Present.
City of Edinburgh.
Here.
City of Harlingen.
Present.
City of Mission. City of FAR. City of San Benito. Starr County. TAC District. Valley Metro. Cameron County RMA. Bronzeville Metro. Port of Bronzeville. McAllen Metro.
Here.
Port of Harlingen. Port Isabel San Benito Navigation District.
Present.
Cameron County Spaceport. Quorum.
Do we have anybody registered for? Moving on to the first item of the agenda, approval of the minutes from the October 9th, 2025 meeting. Everybody had the opportunity to review those, and we have a motion to accept those minutes.
Motion to approve, Amber.
Second. Being moved in second that the minutes be taken into as recorded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is item 2, consider recommending Transportation Policy Board sign a resolution in support of the U.S. bicycle route system and designation. I understand this has been a program that's we've been looked into for Cameron County, and now we want to expand it throughout the region. And to go a little more in detail on that, we have staff.
Hi, good morning, TAC members. My name is Shayna Bricker. I'm the GIS specialist with the MPO. I'm here to talk to you about the United States Bicycle Route 55 designation that the MPO is pursuing. Just a little bit of background information for y'all. The Adventure Cycling Association, and this is a long one, the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials, or AASHTO. These are two organizations that work together to designate nationally recognized bike routes across the country. What's important, what I want you to keep in mind is that Texas has zero, the entire state of Texas has zero national bike routes. So we were approached by the Adventure Cycling Association about USBR 55 and its Loop 255, but looking at it, we saw that these routes would only exist in Cameron County, and we decided that we wanted to look at previous bicycle plans and add an extension of that route into Hidalgo and Starr counties across our entire jurisdiction. So this map has the original proposal from the Adventure Cycling Association. You can see the USBR 55 in green and its Loop 255 in purple. It's only in Cameron County. But on the next slide, we have from the FAR District Bike Plan, the proposed Bicycle Tourism Trails Network. And it's hard to see on these screens, but you can see in green, there's a loop that goes into Hidalgo County. And then in blue, there's a spur that goes through Starr County up to Zapata County. So we were looking at this and we were like, okay, well, it's on the Bicycle Tourism Trails Network. So on our next slide, I have here, this is our UMAP. You can go on our website and look at this, but you can see we have the USBR 55 in green, 255 in purple, and then our proposed extension of the route in orange. So it would go into Hidalgo County, it would loop back around, and then a spur into Starr County all the way up to Zapata County. So why should we designate a route? There are plenty of reasons. It confirms that bicyclists are legitimate roadway users. It allows the state of Texas Department of Transportation to show their support of bike travel. It lets people in cars know that there are bicyclists on the roadway to keep both the drivers and the bicyclists safe. It encourages bike travel and tourism. Believe it or not, there are people who want to bicycle across the entire country. And this route would go from the Gateway International Bridge all the way up to North Dakota. But lastly, I think the most important reason to designate a route is that it identifies the best, safest, and or preferred route through an area by that area's government or presiding agency for bicycle travel. So what are we working on right now? Right now, the MPO is working to compile data and write a proposal for TxDOT to look over and approve. Currently, we are organizing TxDOT's crash data along the route, both the original proposal and the extension into Hidalgo and Starr County. What's next in the process? Once we submit that proposal to TxDOT and they approve it, the local pavement owners will be asked to sign letters of support. The term pavement owners is coined rhetoric from the Adventure Cycling Association. It refers to the county, the cities, and the municipalities that own the pavement along the route. Once we receive all those letters of support, then those letters, the route proposal, and the AASHTO application are submitted to AASHTO by TxDOT. Then AASHTO will decide to approve the route designation at their biannual meeting in the spring of 2026. That is our deadline. We presented this item to our Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee last week. They had some questions, including, are there any legal requirements? The answer is no. AASHTO, when they were deciding to put all this together, they were like, that would be too much to put on the municipalities in order to designate the route. The only long-term maintenance required is regular maintenance of the roadway, which we already take care of with our organization. The second question was about signage, and signage is not required. Of the 24,000 miles of national USBR systems, only 25% of those routes have dedicated signage. If we decided to pursue it, these are an example of what those signs would look like. I do believe that if the municipality decided to pursue signage, it would be eligible for Cat 9 funding. Lastly, I'm just here to ask you to recommend a resolution expressing the RGVMPO's support in designating USBR 55, Loop 255, and the extension into Hidalgo and Starr counties. We're really excited about this endeavor, and I want to reiterate that this would be the very first national designation of a bike route in the state of Texas. I think we can make history. So, are there any questions?
Your presentation from staff, questions, concerns, devil's advocate, I have to ask, what are the cons to this? I know you all have already looked into maintenance and signage, but there's nobody that's done this throughout the history of the United States.
In Texas.
In Texas, then there's got to be a reason why somebody's held back from doing it. Have we looked into the cons of this?
I will be honest with you, no, I have not looked into the cons of this. I've been really excited about it and just been full steam ahead. I think maybe just not wanting to.
I guess let me answer this.
Yes, please.
When it comes to bicycle planning, like even in my years experiences, there are many efforts, and in the areas that I've worked, we attempted to do this. The reality of it all is that priorities shift all the time. So what I was saying is that priorities sometimes shift in terms of planning. And so the idea here is that we believe, as the MPO staff, is that there's momentum to do this. One of the things that we have to consider that all roads in Texas are public roads. Therefore, bicyclists can use the roads. And here is that what we're trying to achieve is in the upcoming weeks, what the MPO plans to do is work along with everybody within the committees of the MPO to develop a region-wide active transportation plan that would focus on tourism, active transportation. When we look at USBR designation, the idea is to not only promote cycling across Texas and also promote the TxDOT bicycle plan, but we are also key on the active transportation component. So what that means is that if we bring in tourists and understanding the great works that all the municipalities have done here with trails, it adds to that flavor. So having the USBR designation, we would have to have a resolution from the policy board. And then along the routes, we just need letter supports from said communities. There is no maintenance required, no signage, any of that. However, if there's a will of the policy board to identify a project for the signing, I'm sure we can come up with a project. But I think in essence is that when it comes to cycling and things of that nature, in my experience, the shifting of priorities have always been for road improvements. We're not making any improvement. It's just a mere designation of a route. And then again, is that we need to look at it from an active tourism perspective in terms of what we're doing down here. It's not going to cost anything. So I think that part of the promotion here is for us to make a recommendation to the policy board. And then if it is a favorable recommendation and they approve it, then they will move up to TxDOT, where TxDOT and maybe very specifically apply to AASHTO for this designation.
Yeah, so that's one of the comments, I guess, along the lines of signage. It'd be good to identify on that map, perhaps, and it doesn't have to be now, but just for next steps, where we might consider a main trunk line or trunk lines off that route, because it's pretty well defined in Cameron County, but when you get to Hidalgo and Star, well, in Star it's pretty well defined as one route, but in Hidalgo County, kind of decide where maybe that signage project would be one of the things that shake out. But one of the questions I had about the resolution was, is it going to require, and I know it says that the county entities respectfully request, would they be signatories on this resolution, or would y'all have, as part of the final execution of this resolution, their support letters attached to it?
Yes. So the idea here is that we want to make sure that the state of Texas, when they apply on behalf of the MPO to AASHTO, that the region is behind the project, right? So we will start with the resolution. And as part of the package, we are required to have the letters of support. So the individual bodies, right? If we have municipalities that come across that route, we're targeting those, but we also want letters of support from the counties as well, right? Because what we're looking at it not only from a municipal or a granular level, but we want to look at the entire region as a whole.
Question in regards to the trail, we're talking tourism, but I see, and I'm correct me if I'm wrong, this bike trail is going to Military Highway from Bronzeville up to Military Highway. We're looking at tourism. Why didn't we shoot it up to those tribes so they can benefit from some of that tourism through San Benito to try to get some of that benefit of the tourism that's out there?
Right. So remember is that what we're allowed to do is designate the bigger route. What I've seen in my experience, again, is that a lot of the municipalities have the capacity to develop spurs off this route. So what we're trying to do is just get the designation on the national level. And then from there, and like I mentioned earlier, what we want to develop is the active transportation plan across the region, where we're going to go in and talk to the counties and the municipalities about their bicycle planning. That way we have a trail system that we're developing based on that. Because if we were to go in, not that we couldn't, but from a significance perspective, correct, is that the way I see the USBR system, it's a macro level system approach. But then we are allowed to develop spurs or trunk lines off of those designated routes.
And would that be at the cost of the small cities that have limited budgets? I mean, because right now we're proposing this is paid for, right?
So there is no financial commitment
Okay,
for the designation. It is completely free,
okay.
right? And so what if the policy board were to decide that we want signage, and all this signage will be in accordance to the requirements that the state has, we can produce a project for said signage,
Spurs, yeah.
right? So understanding is that whenever we have signage, then under this project, we would need somebody to lead it. And then we would need to do an environmental document, all that good stuff, right, that's required. So that's why the mere nomination of the USBR, spurs, and things of that nature have no financial commitment. So they made it very clear to us that it's not required for signage.
Okay.
I have a question. Which map will be the state plan or
We're going off our UMAP, which it takes the route from the Fire District Bike Plan. It's also included, I'll add it to my presentation for policy board, but it's also included on our DVMPO active transportation plan.
So they're, like, on my instance, these are all state roads. So that's gonna be, is there gonna be any kind of striping to designate a bike route? So, and this went through the VPAC, because the VPAC would be the first one to complain, this is not a designated bike lane anywhere.
No, so remember, we're
And
talking
they
about,
affect their high speed.
right, we're talking about a designation. We're not talking about what is required if we make an improvement on the roadway. So part of this.
Only if it makes an improvement.
No. So here is that if we designate the route to, so what I said earlier is that every road in Texas is a public road. Cyclists have a right to it. You don't need striping, okay? However, if there is an improvement that somebody wants to do along a designated route, let's say that it goes through, the MPO would be the platform for this. So if you want to do buffer bike lanes, whatever y'all want to do, the MPO would be the catalyst to do this. So in other words, because, and this is a very good point that you bring up, is that when we're talking about safety and you have an open road, I mean, I've seen a lot of folks that they use the shoulder, right?
Yeah.
Then you get people, you know, that like the Evel Knievel, you know, complex, and they use the full road, you know, the full lane. But there's different types of users when it comes to cycling. And so I think that for us is that the designation of the USBR is important. However, is that we are just looking at the designation. So if they designate, great, then we can come back as we do the active tourism, active transportation plan, is to look at these corridors that have been designated if there's any type of treatments that we need to bring forward now. So there are two different things, but I'm very glad that you're bringing up the design component now.
Yeah, and I think to design, you're really looking at traffic. So as y'all compile crash data, also compile any bike counts
Yeah,
that are available along that route to kind of know what the university dealing with right now.
yeah, because we're gonna open it up. If we're designating this
Yeah.
route and there's no bike facility on that route, it's gonna be brought to our attention that there's no bike facilities. Why are you designated a route without any bike facilities? I mean,
Yeah, you would need an inventory, like knowing if there's bike
Right.
accessible shoulders and things of that like along
again,
the route.
it's going on to the state road, so I don't see text out here.
I want to speak. It's funny because I agree with Tom like 100%, and as a excellent complainer, that was one of the things I thought about as someone extremely skeptical of a lot of these things. But ultimately, it's like he said, they already have that right, being able to identify it, and yeah, it's going to be another investment in the future that we look at. But I think that's kind of the point. They're already biking out there, and then I know. Once we designate it, people are going to have more questions, but those are questions we should have answers to in terms of how we're addressing them because it's already their right. So I see this ultimately as a good move in the right direction. And that's why I think even at the BPAC, we looked at it like, this is just the right step in the, so 2 cents.
I think as far as components, outreach, public outreach and education is key to safety. As we open up these routes to bicycling and we acknowledge their rights or by BPAC and they all have the right to do it right now, but then they have to follow the appropriate components. They have to have their helmets, the safety, et cetera. They have to also do the signals and do everything that they're supposed to do rightfully. And this goes back to careful what you wish for, because if we do designate them bike routes and then later on we find out that TxDOT or the agency, overseeing agency come back and says, well, you need to have the striping, you need to have all of these components affiliated with it, and this is the cost. Once again, as I said, if nobody's done it in the state yet, it makes me kind of question why it hasn't been done. But it's all up to the board or to the policy advisory committee to get this to the board and move forth. But I foresee them asking these same questions as far as fiscal responsibility and educating the public. But anyway, we've had numerous discussion. We've heard from staff. Does anyone want to care to make? Yes, ma'am.
I do. You made a really good point, and I think Eric, I had a question too. There's been a lot of discussion, but there hasn't been like a yes or no. So I just want to ask the question to get a yes or no. Will this designation require additional requirements when we do a project? Let's say we do. It doesn't really affect the city of FAR too much, but let's say it does affect one of our roads. Will that trigger like a certain design criteria for the bike routes? And then if so, like what is the percentage of additional cost of the project as a result of being a designated route
Right. So let me take that question. Okay. There is no financial requirement
at this
Okay.
time.
at any time. This is a route designation. That's all it is. They are designating a bike route on a existing roadway. In Texas, a roadway is a public road again. If I'm a cyclist, which I am, my nickname is Evel Knievel. And so I go on these routes. Okay. I like riding in mixed traffic. That's what gets the adrenaline going. Okay. So I'm one of those, high risk prone users that they talk about. And so for me, it doesn't bother me, but I acknowledge that there's different users, unlike me. But when they designate the route, is just that route designated, right? It goes through the MPOs or local bodies, and it goes to TxDOT as a member of AASHTO to make the recommendation. Then AASHTO recommends it. AASHTO produces very excellent, design standards for cycling, right? So these treatments, if the MPO and through TAC and the member agencies want to make the improvements, that is a separate conversation as a whole. So when we do this designation, there is zero financial responsibility for the MPO, for any municipality or county that have a letter of support because the road is already pre-existing.
I guess,
Now-
I totally understand. I have two brothers that are Evel Knievel like you, and they go 100 miles almost twice a week. So there's different users. My only question here is, and I understand the use of all facilities in the state of Texas that are roadways have to be shared with bicyclists. My only question in here is going back to what Tom mentioned earlier. Are we, by assigning this, going to increase the risk on safety of the cyclist? By now assigning it, having somebody that is not as experienced as you are, maybe somebody like me or Ramon that decide to jump into bicycling, first thing you're going to do is go look at the route, and we go jump on 107. We know that we're not smart enough. I mean, 107, the traffic is speed is too high for cycling. Are we going to increase that I guess, the risk of safety? Are we, by assigning it?
So one of the components is that we have to demonstrate the crash data from the CRIS data that TxDOT produces, right? So in that mapping, that's the middle, that'll be one of the criterias, right? So you're always going to have conflicts. What we can't control, right, as a whole, is what the human being does on that vehicle. So if we're designing something, right, I mean, and this is just a public road, it's built to a certain standard, right? And so some will travel on the lane, some will use the shoulder. Some people will not use a helmet and things of that nature. So when it comes to the individual, when it comes to the human factoring of transportation, what that individual is going to do, we can have the best facilities built. We can pump in billions of dollars into the design. Whatever the human being decides to do is what we can't control.
And I understand that. It's just that I know there's not designated routes, but they're designated within the bicycling community of knowing they take these roads because we know these are safer, kind of goes. Are we, by just assigning it now, changing those patterns? That's my question. Are we increasing the risk? Right now, I know which road my siblings take, because I've ridden with them a couple of times. Because I know that those are going to be the safest ones. But now assigning it, somebody comes from out of town, they don't know that 107 sometimes drives 70 miles per hour,
Yeah.
And we don't have
And
enough lighting.
I agree with
So-
him because like I was going on the green line, in Cameron County, that's 281. A lot of 18-wheelers travel 281 Military Highway. If that's a designation, my concern would be his concern for the novelist, bicyclist. Is that the best route for them, not being the Evel Knievel that you are, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If they're starting, it's put them right in traffic of 18-wheelers. Is that the designated route we want to take, or are we going to consider moving this route? We're just kind of going with the program, going to look for the best route after we get TxDOT feedback and all that of what's the safest route for our bikers.
Right.
We're not increasing risk. I mean, I get people behave differently. I'm not going to go jump in there and do it. But, by assigning it, it's going to provide us a potential of in the future getting funding and upgrading it to what it needs to be for us to be able to have this connectivity, which I totally agree with it. I mean, that's the best route that we can take to interconnect all three counties.
Right.
And some of these roadways, I mean, we don't have any of them within the city, but looking at it on the overall stepping back, I like the route. personally. It's just that the risk factor on it at this time right now, without having improvements on it, if we were going to publish this and say this is a bike route, is it going to increase the potential of people going in there thinking we're now safe because it's being, and as facilities not being upgraded, you know?
Right. So I think like here, right, is that I think that this conversation, what it tells me is that there's a catalyst for improvement,
Yeah.
correct? And I agree, is that I would tell you that when I look at the history of this MPO, all three MPOs, is that and I'm just going to say it, there's a poor investment on the bicycle side. And the next one is transit, right? So I think that if the conversation here is not only the designation component, but not only designated, but also bring us a project, right? So for me, right, and this is why when we're looking at, the role of BPAC, when we're looking the role of having call for projects for TASA funding, these are all funding components that are eligible for this type of work. And so I think that if here we're talking about, moving forward with some type of recommendation for designation, so be it. But what I would also say is to inform the policy board that of this route designation across the entire valley is to also consider, and assign you all to come back and make recommendations for a project, right? Because what we're doing, we do a call for projects, and it's understandable. Everybody has priorities, but now we need to look at it from a regional perspective. So if this becomes a catalyst for us to examine bicycle infrastructure planning and programming, so I think that's the thing we should do. So that would give us a way of understanding all these projects across the board, and then what type of treatment or design work would come with it. So again, is that you can make the recommendation and move forward, right? Because there's only certain windows for us to apply.
So the recommendation would be to approve, but with the understanding that we're going to put more effort in the future and trying to make it safer.
So I think the recommendation could be made in such a way to recommend the designation to TxDOT for these routes, and also consider the MPO staff and along with TAC to examine these potential routes and provide some type of project across the entire valley.
Quick comment.
Hmm?
So context to some of the members, back in 2016, Cameron County with, I think, 10 different cities participated in an active transportation master plan. And so from that, we developed the 2018, which is the blue line. At that time, we wanted to tap into the tourism of cycling. 2024, that industry was about $28 billion. And so that's something that I know we looked at the time to bring down to the valley. And so I think this destination is good. There's some kinks we need to work out as far as the safety, but it should be one of those items that could help us for future funding. When we applied for the Safe Streets for All, there was a category in there, a check mark, if you had a U.S. designated route. And so we couldn't check that off, but now we could, or in the future we could. Thank you.
My question, you don't want a resolution from each individual city, it would just be from the board?
So the resolution will come from the policy board. And if the route is along said municipality and or county, that is part of the package that we submit.
Well, by chance on any of these routes, and this is me looking because I'm sitting to two litigations right now, has anybody come say after the city if they've had an accident on that bike lane and there's no bike facilities? Is the city being held liable because we supported or we designated this area?
As of right now, no.
As of right now, no. So all the areas that you have, they don't have designated facilities?
Nope.
I think that when we're talking about a route, right, where there's signage, right, and then normally, so let's say that, and we'll just use TxDOT as an example, there's treatments on the roadway itself, right? So they could have the sharrows and all that nature. And then I think that if there's a bike lane, and just depending upon the treatment, where I have seen litigation in the past was that design standardized, right? I think that's where the litigation comes in, right? But, again, I mean, from this perspective is that I think there's catalyst to talk about the design as it relates to designation across the entire valley when it comes to bicycle infrastructure. And I think that, and I'm not sure that when we did the SS4A, that we honed in on these routes from a cycling perspective. But again, we have the SS4A, and then we, the NPR, are committed to developing a, region-wide active tourism, active transportation plan. And we can dive in and look at these type of potential treatments.
Yeah, because I know,
Anywhere, when you designate a route, is anywhere within the right of way of that facility, you can designate, you can actually, once you come back and do the intricacies and final design and putting somebody in there, you can put them anywhere within the right of way, whether you want to come in and build a new facility in there, throw it in the same travel lane. So when we designate a route, it's just the full width on planning purposes, right? Am I correct? So it goes back to the risk of the liability of if we're going to put more cyclists. But if we come back with a consideration on coming back and looking at it more of actually investing some type of safety on it, I think it will be a good move.
yeah, because correct me if I'm wrong, but I know TxDOT, there's two different standards for bike facilities, ASHTO and NACTO. I don't remember exactly which one TxDOT follows, but I remember it was a big deal. They actually got us funding to do a bike box one time, a green bike box, and came back and said it's not a TxDOT requirement, so they're not allowed on state facilities. So that's why we just got to make sure, I was hoping TxDOT was here to ask, okay, if it is going to be ASHTO, that's fine. That's later on opens itself up for funding to do those bike facilities at that point. But I know they do a fine line on those
Yeah.
standards.
Yeah, and so I think that, and I'm not gonna, I know what the answer is, but I don't work for TxDOT, right? But I think idea is that when we go down, and hopefully we go down to the design level, right? TxDOT will be part of that review committee, right? So all of this thing will require full-blown environmental documents and what have you. And so, but I'm really glad to hear that everybody has pointed out or has observed very, eloquently that we need a project along with this.
Yeah,
for
and this
improvements.
stems from, when we first did the BPAC, because I remember when I first started, I was part of the BPAC, and that's helped out. A lot of us understand the bike facilities, what a cyclist wants, what they want to see. So that's fruits from, this committee before, and it really helps out. But again, there's still a lot of questions if I'm more just scared of, we're designated a facility without no bike facility. That's the only thing that I have.
Well, I'd like this committee to consider that green line that I'm talking about shooting from the starting point in Bronzeville, going up to Los Fresnos, hitting 510, turning into Seminole, and then running into Harlingen. I don't know why this committee or whoever devised this chose to go through such a rural area, such as that military highway I'm referring to, and not why bringing it straight up, which would benefit Los Fresnos, hit the 510, and then coming to San Benito would also benefit San Benito and any other little towns in there. It would help them versus going to 281, which we know is just the Rio Grande River.
I can speak
No.
somewhat to that. It was part of the master plan that we did in 2016, and so Adventure Cycling Association was the one that recommended, and so the committee at the time approved it.
And that's one of the routes the cyclists take.
But we're making the
Correct.
recommendation now, right? As this committee to the MPO, so we could change that, correct?
Oh, yes, of course.
And I would ask this committee to consider that change so they could benefit the small towns that probably need that tourism and need,
Sure.
so that's,
Those are the spurs.
But would it be a change or can it just be a spur if they
Spur.
want?
Well, it's a spur. It would become a spur, right?
This is the
It
actual
could be
route.
an addition to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again,
yeah, but we're talking about, we're designated as a national. Like,
we're not designating anything. We're recommending.
okay, right,
right?
recommending for it to be recognized as a national
Yes.
deal. So why not put it so that it's national? If you looked it up on the website, you're not looking for spurs. You're following the national deal, which shot up to Los Fresnos and shot to San Benito. I guess my recommendation to this committee to consider.
I'm not a bicyclist myself, but I know in doing planning routes to travel on, you want the minimal stops that you can get. And I think that's something the bicyclists look for also, is the route with least interruption. That may be why the rural sectors were selected or whatever it may be. But we would need to look at those designations and considerations when we do get down into the weeds of each project, and we could go into the spurs and developing alternate routes, et cetera.
I think we got to keep it simple for right now.
Yes,
So I'll make a motion to recommend the resolution.
I have a quick
as
question for
is.
that. So on the
As is, yeah.
resolution, once it, let's say it does get approved, are we gonna hear back what the recommendations are from TechStop and the ASHTO committee, what they recommended before the implementation?
So the process is that this is solely a recommendation,
Mhm.
right? So if the policy board sees favorable in this, and then we get the letters of support, I think this submittal window, Shayna, is in February. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's what we're aiming for.
And so then from there, if ASHTO reviews our application and agrees, then the route is just simply designated. So we'll probably get a letter saying that, hey, congratulations, the route is designated now. Now from there, and not that we're going to wait, but going back to building the foundation, if you will, this is a skeleton of it all, right? I know there's been a lot of work either at the county levels or at the municipal levels, but now the idea is for the MPO to kind of run with this. And so this is not a, once in a lifetime shot. We can come back and make a recommendation through TechStop to ASHTO for any other spurs that we like, right? So I think here is that however you all want to make the recommendation, at this time, I don't know very specifically when they were looking at these routes, if there was time components to it, meaning like the chair said, is that they were looking for more open field, things of that nature. But again, is that you have folks that are rural cyclists, and then you have the Evel Knievels of the world, right? So I think that it's very good to point out that there are two systems here, that we're looking at a rural system and then we're looking at the urban system, right? So.
Okay, there is a motion on the floor from the city of McAllen to
Oh.
accept the item as suggested or moved forth.
Second, City of Bronzeville.
It's been moved in seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is item 3. Consider recommending the ranking and programming of candidate projects for the Category 10 Carbon Reduction Program. Again, this is a program that's been brought forth. We know that the funding is at risk, and we're looking to promptly move these projects forward. And to hear more on that, we have staff. Melanie?
Good morning, TAC members. I've provided the tentative timeline of the carbon reduction program call for Federal Transit Administration flexible funding projects. In the packet, we will need to get FHWA and TechStar review of the approved projects, which would occur from November 15th through December 30th. And then if there are any changes based on that review, we anticipate TAC's recommended approval of eligible CRP projects on January 8th and policy board approval on January 28th. We received 4 project submittals from Brownsville Metro, Valley Metro, and McAllen Metro, and there is a total of $3.8 million of CRP funding available. All submitted projects must meet both FHWA and FTA requirements under Title 23 and be within our metropolitan area boundary. This table shows the ranked, can you go down, scroll down, please? This is a table that shows the ranked projects evaluated by the TAC subcommittee. And projects ranked 1 through 3 are within the available funding amount. We are requesting TAC's approval of recommending the ranking and programming of the candidate projects for the Category 10 CRP Carbon Reduction Program.
We've heard from staff. Is there discussion, concerns? want to be brought forward?
So, I mean, we're cool with the ranking. We're number 4 right there with 737. What we wanted to know was, I mean, can we just, reduce that project cost and throw it in as rank number 4 and continue with that eligibility process? And if there were any questions anybody had to us at this point that we might be able to answer.
I think one of the facets of this project or this item is that we need to be able to not only theoretically mention how carbon is being reduced, et cetera, but if it's audited, we need to be able to prove, and we need to be able to document and record the actual reduction in carbon, et cetera, that's being monitored or whatever. And I just found that project for the sidewalks to be a little difficult to be able to do that. But yes, I mean, that's just my perspective, but
No, and that's fair. I know when we were doing a glance into some of the projects that had been approved for flexing through CRP, we found sidewalks and other kinds of walkability were considered, you're taking a vehicle off the road.
right.
And then another thing is when you're auditing, that's one of the reasons we wanted to do flex. Because if it flexes into FTA, and I think a lot of the transit agencies along will agree, the process for navigating that project development is so much easier, so much more adaptable, and it allows us a lot of leeway in ensuring that those projects just get out. We want the projects out as much as everyone else does, and so that was the purpose of the request. I know everyone else kind of did that hybrid. The buses and the vehicles, and that's excellent. And like we want them to get their funding, but just I know ours is kind of the oddball out, and so I just wanted to make sure I clarified that.
Question, you'll reduce the scope to what, 530 of a project to meet within the 3.8?
Yes, 530,249.
And from Brownsville Metro, we support McAllen's Metro's reduction of the scope for this project. It does meet the criteria to flex it over from FTA side. Brownsville Metro, we didn't put in for sidewalk or improvements because we have 3 phases of projects going on for bus shelter and sidewalk improvements right now. And our major needs are vehicles, and we already are working towards a low emission vehicle acquisition. So we have 56% of our fleet already going towards no emissions and carbon reduction. So we want to continue that. But we do support McAllen Metro's Metro's reduction.
So on that reduction, and that was going to be one of my original questions, does it present any challenges in any permitting you have to do, or do you all have the termini that could define the environmental document to make that a project?
So I'm not really an expert necessarily on the procurement of all that, but right now we have an existing program where we have line items specifically for sidewalk development, and we're invested. Like right now, I have 500 grand, and we piecemeal it. So on Main Street, we did Hackberry to Pecan, and if that's a $50,000 slab, it gets built, and it follows all of FTA's procurement. They send us the bill, and then they do it again. They did another one on 24th Street recently, and it's a beautiful sidewalk. It has all the accessibility. It's painted. It's good for people with disabilities. And with FTA, it's just faster. And that's really all I can say. And again, even when I submitted this project, there wasn't necessarily a scope, but because the scope changes very frequently based on available right-of-way, where new project development we understand is going to happen. And so we've had a lot of success using FTA funds for sidewalks, and we just want to continue to do that through here.
So just a quick comment, because I know we go through it all the time. There is no PSNE environmental as like on the Texas side. Once it hits the step, it transfers to the FTA side. And the requirements are so easy. I mean, so easy. And even the timeline, you have 2 more years than the normal 3 years on the Texas side. And so, yeah, I wish we could use.
So it doesn't present any challenges with design approvals and all that. Okay.
The challenges are minimal compared to TechStop.
The intent here and the philosophy, and which Metro's been doing for years now in the heart of McAllen, it's been improving the pedestrian infrastructure to try to get pedestrians to the Metro location.
Yeah.
And that's what they're targeting with this. So by doing that, you're allowing a more familiar pathway to get for somebody, instead of jumping in their car, just go walk and get the bus and go for a mile on the bus, So that's where the, I guess, environmental basis of it are.
And I do want to add, just from a bus perspective, that's one of our most common complaints is they do not feel safe getting to the bus stop. So we are very much addressing transit. We are very much ensuring people are using the sidewalks, and they all have to be used within a certain area. They can't be like, somewhere there's no transit stop. They have to be within, I want to say, a quarter mile or so of a transit stop. So.
And what fiscal year is this for?
This is 2026.
26.
Yeah, we would have to let all these projects by 26, but since they're being transferred, hopefully that expedites things.
And we do have, like I said, this isn't some random project we're doing. Oh, we think we can do it. We already do this. So this is something we have a history of doing successfully.
All right, so is there an amendment to this motion to reduce?
Yeah,
Brownsville Metro, motion to approve the amendment to McAllen Metro's reducing their scope and approve the other projects 1 through 3.
Did you get that, Mr. Estrada? All right, so the motion has been presented. Do we hear a second?
Second.
It's been moved in second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Tom.
Thank you, ma'am.
That moves us on to item 4, considering recommending the Transportation Policy Board sign a resolution and adoption of the 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan, the 2025-28 Transportation Improvement Program, and responses to comments from the 30-day public comment period. We'll hear comments from Mr. Rudy.
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning to all of our committee members. Just want to announce of the 2 items that are on the agenda there. There's a link to our website that we've had up for the past month. Public comment period has concluded today, November 13th. We were able to visit the Harlingen Public Library on October 17th, Edinburgh City Hall, November 7th, the La Grulla City Hall just yesterday, November 12th, and we are concluding today with this Technical Advisory Committee meeting. We want to thank all of our partners for having us. We enjoy visiting you all, and we just ask that in the future that we get more invites because we want to be able to visit everybody as often as possible. Other than that, we have a draft resolution that will be recommended to our policy board, but I'd like to turn the podium over, if I could, to our consultants from ATG DCCM. They'll be presenting a PowerPoint regarding our 2050 MTP.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Clifton Hall. I'm with ATG DCCM. I'm acting as a consultant for your 2050 MTP. So we've been working on this project for about 2 years with Rudy and the rest of the staff. And so it's been a pretty long journey, but we're excited to wrap it up. And yeah, an uphill journey for sure. But no, we've got to do a lot of great work with the MPO on this project and really get to know them through, especially the last few months of working on this together. I know there's been a lot of changes at the MPO at the staff level and beyond. And so, but we're very thankful to be a part of this project. And we're very excited that we're wrapping it up with the staff right now. So just real quick, I'll go over some of the deliverables that we are going to be handing over to the MPO very soon. And then we'll talk about some of the federal requirements, some of the multimodal analysis we did for the plan, and then some topics like sustainability and resiliency, just real quick. We'll discuss our public involvement efforts in support of the MPO staff, really quickly go over the project listings, and then talk about next steps. So this is basically the scope of our project with the MPO staff. And as you can see, most of our components of this are complete. That's what the little bricks mean, is they're in progress, but the check marks mean complete, and the handshakes mean we've been closely coordinating with MPO staff on that particular item. And so a lot of this work was done over the past couple of years. And so there was a little bit of a lull from the beginning of the year to the summer, but we really picked up the steam in the summer to finish up the document with the MPO staff and especially integrate some of their project needs from TxDOT and from some of their local partners. And so that's been our big effort. Some of the outstanding components are still to finish up public involvement, which includes this meeting and meeting with your TPB, as well as just finalizing the document based on comments received from the public during the comment period, which Rudy mentioned ends today. So if we could do the next slide. Yeah, just to broadly overview the FHWA planning requirements and some of the performance measures FHWA requires. You can see them here with little icons, but the long and short of it is there's a certain federal requirements that need to be met by the MTP. And really the way the federal law is set up is for the MTP to be sort of the keystone document for the MPO. It's the main way the public gets to know what the MPO is doing, and especially what the long range plan is for the transportation system in the region. And so you can see the goals of the federal legislation there on the left: safety and security, economic vitality, emphasizing preservation, enhancing travel and tourism. And so those are some of the more thematic elements that are found in the MTP in the narrative document. Some more technical aspects include those performance measures. So there's safety performance measures. They're all called PM2 and some other fun things, but PM1 is safety. Pavement and bridge conditions is PM2, and PM3 is system performance, which has to do with congestion and reliability. So all that's documented in the MTP. That's one of the federal requirements. And then there's some transit performance measures. So kind of the transit version of PM2 for assets is state of good repair, or SGR. And then there's also a safety component, which is done by the transit agencies individually and coordinated by the MPO into the MTP. So a big component and really kind of the foundation, in my opinion, of the MTP is really the multi and intermodal systems and needs analysis. And so when we think of our transportation network, especially in Texas, I've been in Texas about 10 years now. And so we all know that highways are a big deal in Texas. Travel by car is a big deal, but we have to cover every mode, big and small, and then the other modes such as freight and more special topics. And so the way we develop this analysis for the MTP is we start off with technical memos. And so each of these bullet points represents a technical memo or a coordination item that we had with the MPO staff. A lot of it was done by our staff using data provided and coordinated with the MPO. And so these kind of represent the topical data analysis done to develop the MTP. And so each of these is a technical memo that the MPO staff has on hand. And so some of the tools and methods we use to develop these are, of course, FHWA guidance and processes, geographic information systems and mapping. As you can imagine, most of these have a geographic component and have a lot of maps that go with them. Using data tables and data analysis to develop the recommendations, and then some plan review and technical analysis. So we do integrate other studies, other plans into the recommendations for the MTP and into those narrative portions. Sustainability and resilience was a big emphasis for this MTP. And because of recent changes at the federal administrative level, some of that ended up being taken out of the MTP, which I'll discuss a little bit. But we did work, ATG did work with the MPO staff in the last 2 or 3 years to develop a sustainability and resiliency analysis. And we really emphasized that in some of those recommendations in this MTP. We used one of our sub-consultants to look at all of the projects, for example, that we had over last winter, and kind of get an analysis of what the impacts on equity, sustainability, and resiliency really looked like. And so we integrated as much of that as we could into the MTP. But FHWA's recommendation, I guess, we ended up taking some of those items out and parking them in a kind of informal tech memo. And so if that guidance changes from the federal administrative level, once again, we'll have it to be able to integrate it back into the MTP and use in the planning process. But this map just shows some of the prioritization scores given to projects based on their impacts on sustainability and resiliency. So public involvement is a major requirement of the metropolitan planning process. And you could argue it's one of the main things that the MPO does and is here for, is to coordinate not with just regional stakeholders, but also with the public in general, and get everybody on the same page with how federal funds are being spent. And so we had 2 major efforts for public involvement that we helped the MPO staff with. One was last summer in August, right around the time school started at UTRGV. So we got to do some really cool in-person events at UTRGV, La Plaza, Critical Mass, and then some farmers markets. And one thing that we brought with us was an online planning and public involvement tool and some bilingual public outreach materials. So we were able to use for those first 2 rounds in August of last year. And overall, we had about 1,000 people that we got in touch with, that we got to present with MPO materials, talk to about the transportation system. And that was at about 2,500 people total for those events, which is pretty cool. And so we received 150 comments on what we presented, and then about 35 detailed survey responses. And so all those were documented in an additional tech memo for public involvement. Our last round of public involvement is, again, wrapping up today on the 13th. And so MPO staff was able to go to Harlingen at their public library, Edinburgh City Hall, earlier this month. We got to join them in Starr County and La Grulla yesterday, which was really cool. And then we're presenting at the TAC meeting today to fulfill that last public meeting. We will have one more public involvement opportunity or public comment opportunity at the TPB meeting. And so once we receive all those comments, we'll be able to start wrapping up the final document. which is about 99% done, just so you know. But the executive summary you see on the right is a brochure we put together, just detailing the different kind of components of the plan in a public-friendly format and highlighting some of the major components of it. A few of the other details and some of the more important ones in the plan are our financial plan. And so I'll try to go through this really quickly, but the financial plan basically illustrates all of the funding available through TxDOT, through the federal government and locally. And so it's a mix of those state and local and federal funds that go into all these projects. We have over $8 billion committed in the plan, which is really exciting. And a lot of those are in the next 10 to 15 years, which is really cool. And so we detail some of the local funding sources also, but basically there's a small amount of funding that the MPO gets to kind of designate for certain projects of regional importance. And that's your Category 7 funding, as you guys might know, or STBG. And so the MPO was working with TxDOT over the last few months to coordinate with their needs and the regional needs and get those on the same page for the TIP and UTP, which Rudy mentioned, but all those documents have to be in line with each other. And so our job as their consultant working on the MTP is just to make sure that we're keeping up with all the changes that need to be made to the MTP project list, which is a lot higher level. But the financial plan really gives us an idea of what we're able to spend, not only in those first 2 stages for the TIP and the 10-year plan, but also for the MTP out into the future to look at what we're going to develop for future programming. So it also includes an overview of the federal transit funding. And so we just estimate the amount that is currently existing will carry on into the future. And so we do document the major funding sources like your urban formula funding, your elderly and persons with disabilities funding, and then the bus funding, as well as some other funding sources. On both the highway and transit side, we also estimate operating and maintenance costs. And so Rudy did a really good job finding some of that data for us from our local partners here in the RGV. And so we'll be updating that in the final plan, but we just received some of that information last week. All right, so the financial plan is important because it kind of gives you the budget by which you can program projects. So all of these documents need to be fiscally constrained, the TIP, the 10-year plan / UTP, and the MTP. But for the MTP, we have to look at the total cost of the projects and the ongoing maintenance as well. And so it's a little bit more high level, but we also made sure that we were staying consistent as we could with the other 2 documents because those are more detailed. And so we've been working with the data that Rudy's been giving us on their continued conversations with TxDOT and with you all as their local partners. And so he's been doing a really good job of keeping us up to date on that. And so we were looking at both the total project cost, which includes all development construction costs, as well as the YOE, which is just kind of shorthand for the cost that's actually federalized and is using those state and federal funds. So FHWA requires that we look at least 20 years. So we're going a little bit past 20 years. But that's where those development projects in the outer year of the plan come in. So those are the projects we'll be looking at with the next 5 to 10 years to study and develop further as these other projects get off the books. So like I said, the other plans require that the YOE costs be constrained, but we're just sort of looking at the high level costs for TPC, total project costs. So that makes it a little more flexible with how we program costs, especially out in the long term. And so again, there's been a major effort between us and the RGV MPO staff, especially by them, to make sure that we're fiscally constrained in your short range, medium range. And we've been keeping up with the long range plan to make sure that's all consistent and doesn't cause any problems when it goes to be approved by TxDOT and by FHWA. And so on the right, there's just a quick chart showing how the different plans work together. And this is from TxDOT, but their statewide plan goes out about 25 years. Our MTP goes about 20 years. And then those programs, the UTP / 10-year plan and the TIP go out 10 and 4 years respectively. And so those are the ones that are really hard to program and you have to get them perfect. And then the MTP has to be consistent with those. So that's what we've been doing as their consultant, is making sure we're as consistent as we need to be in the MTP. So I'm going to run through these projects as fast as possible. I did want to say, if you have any specific questions about specific projects, please save them till the end, or preferably save them for the MPO staff because they have better local knowledge. We've got some laughter out there. They have way better local knowledge of the projects than we do. And we know the project list really well, and we can help them do what they need to do to get it into the MTP correctly. But they'll be able to answer any questions about considerations, and we're right there in their hip pockets. So we'll know everything you tell them, and we'll be able to address it appropriately once the time comes in December. So we're just going to go county by county through the short, medium, and long term really quickly. So for Cameron County in the short term, again, this is consistent with the TIP, the short range program. There's 11 bike ped projects, 1 EV charging project, 3 traffic signal and safety projects, 20 roadway capacity projects, and 1 border safety inspection facility project. So this is a good illustration of types of projects in the MTP and the TIP. Basically, if it's federally funded, the feds have to make a decision on it, such as NEPA, even if it's locally funded, or if it's regionally significant and added capacity or transit, it has to be in the MTP. So that's why some of these are in there. It's federally funded, even though it's not quite a transportation project, so it's in there. For the medium term for Cameron County, so the next 10 years, so year 6, I guess 5 through 10, 6 capacity project and 1 raised medium project. And in the long term, 4 capacity projects are being planned, as well as 4 reconstruction and rehab projects, and then 2 raised medians are being added. And so that long-term list will grow as we go on, but that's what we have for now. And then going on to Hidalgo County, 11 bike ped, 40 added capacity, 1 bridge replacement, 2 EV projects, and then 2 rehab projects. In the medium term, 34 capacity projects, so quite a bit. And again, these are state funded through TxDOT, which is a blend of state and federal funding a lot of the times, and some of them are locally funded or federally and local partner projects. So, and then long-term, 27 roadway projects in Hidalgo County. Starr County, a lot smaller population, but there is 1 big project in the TIP. Really represented as 4 different project listings because of TxDOT's accounting. But those are in different years, so they all have a little bit different details and different budgets. But this project will be in the next 4 to 5 years. All right, and then they didn't have any medium or long range projects. And so to wrap up, our end of the project is their consultant. Really, we're substantially complete for all of our tasks for this project. We're still wrapping up, obviously, public involvement with you all, wrapping up the final details and incorporating those into the MTP document for the final plan, and then wrapping up our project administration. Something we also did is an additional task for travel demand modeling. So another consultant delivered a travel demand model over the summer, and our team just made sure that we were up to speed with what was included in the new TDM, and the staff understood everything that was in the new TDM. So we basically just summarized and reviewed it for them, and then we reviewed the network based on their new project list that they were working on with TxDOT to make sure that everything was accurately included in that travel demand network for that analysis. So again, we're wrapping up public involvement here with you all and with TPB next month for project prioritization list development. We'll continue to coordinate with the MPO. We should have our final project list, but we will continue to coordinate with them and finalize that because that changes rapidly throughout the year. For the travel demand modeling support, that task is complete. We provided a review of the new deployed model and also reviewed their model network for updates. And then we'll be finalizing the MTP document as we speak. And so once those are integrated, we'll deliver the final MTP chapters, the final document to them, and it will be adopted by TPB on December 5th. All right, I want to say thank you. My boss's contact information is up there. Ed Elam, he's here also if you have questions for him. But he's our project manager, so his contact info is there. But like I said, if you have any questions about the document or especially projects, let the MPO staff know, and we'll be in touch with them immediately. So thank you all once again. We've really enjoyed working with the staff and getting to know you all, and we really appreciate the opportunity to work on this project. So are there any questions?
Is there a draft readily available for this to be provided to the hierarchies of the, since December 8th is going to be the last opportunity to comment? I think it's important that this document get taken to the hierarchies of each of our governments, local governments, and these amendments and opportunities to amend are brought forth to these gentlemen on the 8th.
Yes. Yeah, so if you use your phone to scan the QR code on the screen, that will take you to the project page that Rudy and the staff have put together. And so it includes a PDF of the complete document as well as our online survey that they put together. and tons of other information. So it's a really good page. That will take you, I think the first link on the page is the PDF of the full plan. So, and I think that's been available the entire comment period.
Any other questions or concerns? Anyone? Is this an action item? Okay, we've heard from staff and the consultants. Is there a motion to accept this recommendation?
So move, City of Bronzeville.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second, City of McAllen.
Second from the city of McAllen. It's been moved and seconded to accept the item 4 as considered or recommended for the 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
We're moving on to item 5. This is consideration and adoption of the calendar meeting dates.